Go. Hey there, Groove Stars. Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO. Very excited to have on board with us today an old friend. We've done a lot of stuff together, climbed some gnarly mountains in Colorado, done a lot of different things. CEO of PeachCap Securities, Eric Burnette, thank you so much for joining us today. And take us back a little bit. Were you always the entrepreneurial type, want to run a company, or did you start out in a different direction and step into that? I know part of the story, but the rest of us don't. So share with us a little bit your history, if you will.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, Ridgely, for having me on. I'm excited to be here and be able to share at least some of my thoughts. I won't necessarily call it wisdom, but anyways, originally for myself, I'm from just about an hour outside of Atlanta, Athens, Georgia first, and then Gainesville, Georgia. I went to UGA, got my BBA in finance and real estate there, and immediately came to Atlanta after graduating with the idea that Atlanta was kind of the closest city with a lot of opportunity that I could get to. And for myself, I've always had a strong independent side to my personality. But I wouldn't say I've always been the type that was like, I want to go out and start my own business or do my own thing. That just kind of came about through the progression of my life, I suppose. So, I've always have also had kind of that desire to be in control, at least, as much as we can be in control of anything, I suppose. But with that, I knew I probably didn't want to go the traditional corporate route. But I didn't know necessarily what that looked like. So I had the opportunity to intern with a financial advisor out of Atlanta. And upon graduating, I was fortunate enough that he offered me a position and also to take me under his wing and train me and teach me the ropes and all of that. So that's kind of how I got into the business. And he was an independent advisor. So at the time, we were just two people in an office. And, I kind of learned from the ground floor, how to be scrappy, how to build a business from scratch, how to wear those multiple hats, eventually how to hand those hats off and put them on somebody else's head over time. And then just through some organic growth as well as some M&A growth, that business is now PeachCap. And today we're a wealth management, a tax and accounting firm. So we provide all these services. Advisory services are through our RIA, PeachCap Tax and Advisory. Securities are through our BD, PeachCap Securities Inc., and our tax services are through PeachCap Tax. So, anyways, that's kind of how I, from a high level, got to where I am right now.
And so that's a lot. I mean, to think of you're managing multiple divisions that are quite complicated. I mean, you got a whole tax division, you got the securities division, et cetera. How do you handle all that? I mean, that's a lot of stuff to be on top of.
It is. You're right. And one of the first things is having good people surrounding you at the end of the day, because none of us can do everything. So if you can't surround yourself with people that you can rely on, then you're automatically starting, from a disadvantage. So that's first and foremost. And then otherwise, just diligence and putting in the work to try and stay on top of everybody and maintain good relationships and things of that nature. So,
yeah. And so tell me, if you don't mind, running a company basically requires that business hat, but also that entrepreneurial hat. And you started out super scrappy. Like you said, you had to learn the ropes, if you will. So tell me, what do you think are the most important characteristics that an entrepreneur can focus on to give themselves a better chance to succeed?
Sure. To me, and this might sound simple, but as you'll find, I love simplicity. One of my favorite songs is "Simple Man" by Leonard Skinner. Love the KISS, the KISS acronym, keep it simple, stupid. So, at the end of the day, it's your internal drive, but also being willing and able to listen. So, internally, if you don't have that internal drive, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, obviously there's nobody above you to push you. There's nobody there to say, here's the next thing you need to go do. So if you can't, kind of tackle that in on your own, then you're not going to make it.
Mhm.
And the other area that I think is, like I said, being willing and able to listen. A lot of entrepreneurs are very strong-minded, and that's an attribute for them. But it can also be a disadvantage in some respects if they are not willing to listen to those around them, because they do have strong ideas, they have a strong vision, they know where they want to go. They don't always necessarily know how to get there. And that's where they have to be able to define what that vision is, but then listen to others in terms of how to get there and what's the most practical way to get there. So,
Mhm.
a quote that comes to mind that I came across here recently, it was by Tom Brady, and or at least it was attributed to him. And it's, to be successful in anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't. And that's be consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. So,
Oh, that's good. Be consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. That's good.
yep. And I kind of sum that up with, that's your internal drive, right? If you can't do those things automatically on your own, then you're probably going to have a tough time.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good. I'm taking notes over here as fast as I can. So I appreciate that. So in that regard, I know Tom Brady, for example, relied on coaches, mentors, et cetera. What has that meant for you in your development to have people to look to help you along the way, to mentor you along the way? How big of an impact has that had?
Oh, it's huge. It's priceless in my mind. I've always been a big believer in mentorship and the roles of mentors. For me, that goes back to my days in grade school. I've had mentors along the way. I've also been a mentor. I've done that in school settings, growing up. But I've also done that post school in the working world. And to me, at its core, mentorship just really embodies the concept that there are just certain things you have to learn through experience or through others. And you don't need to go out and reinvent every wheel. There are people who've been there and done that. So why not take a legitimate and valid shortcut and learn from them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm about efficiencies and not putting forth more effort than you need to. And that's not to say you need to skimp on things, but to recognize, hey, our lives are overflowing with responsibilities, right? How can we get to it all? Unless we try to be as efficient as possible so that we can get even more done. So
Mm-hmm.
at the very least, we leave more time for ourselves to do those things that we truly enjoy and get fulfillment out of. And the other thing with mentorship and things like that is it's really about building connections, building relationships, and that helps us to build our community. It promotes giving back to others, and that's something that I think is a positive force in general. And it's just a small step towards trying to better the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there who, but for a mentor in their life, they would not have been able to break through or overcome particular barriers that are in their own lives, so that they can grow and be successful in whatever that field is that they're interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. And talk to me, corollary to that. Um, what has been your experience in the value of ongoing, both personal and professional development?
Sure, sure. Well, to me, it's something that we've always got to work on. We as humans are by definition, at least by my definition, we're fallible. But we're not perfect. So there's always something we could be doing better. And I think on the professional side, it's a little easier maybe for people to understand the connection and the importance of it. Um, simply put, if the more you develop professionally, the more responsibility you can handle, and therefore there's more opportunities for professional advancement. So that could mean better paying positions. Um, some people focus on that. Others may say, well, this means I don't have to focus on the money. I have the skills to be in the field that I actually enjoy. So, and if you're not furthering yourself, then you're falling behind, because there's other people out there. We're in a competitive society, and those people are putting in the work each and every day, even on the days that you decide not to, right? Um, so
Yeah.
I think there's a number of reasons to stay on top of how you're developing. And in the personal realm, that can be a little more nebulous for a lot of people. But to me, it just mainly relates to those areas of your life where you have to hold yourself accountable and you're mainly helping or hurting yourself, right? So, that can make it difficult to push yourself harder if you don't have that internal drive that I mentioned earlier. But, you know, like I said, I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, but I try to be reasonable in that. I know true perfection is not really obtainable, but I also can't sit back and say, "Hey, there's something I should be doing better," and I'm just not going to do something about that, right? So to me, it's there's kind of a personal drive there, but I know that doesn't necessarily affect everyone. So other reasons for that are improving your relationships, whether it be your faith, your family, friends, coworkers, your wider community, your health. You look around at the world right now, and there's so much mental distress, so much mental illness, and so finding ways to help yourself to develop yourself psychologically is very important for your well-being and your happiness. Um, and ultimately you're the one that's in control of your own actions, and you're only in control of your own actions. You can't control what other people do, right? So
For sure.
it's really up to us to push ourselves. And if we want to see certain changes, who better to start with than ourselves?
And how have you found, or what are the more effective, efficient ways that you found to convey that to your team, right? Because it's almost seems like when I speak to entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs like yourself, that the one thing that they have to figure out is, okay, I have that internal drive, I have that motivation, I still have to be the person shouting from the mountaintops, walking around, slapping people on the backs. And the old authoritarian do as I say or else kind of thing doesn't really work anymore. So what do you do to keep your crew engaged, keep them working hard, working on themselves, taking care of people? What have you found to be effective?
Right. That's a great question. It's a tough question. And I think the biggest thing is repetition. You've got to be constantly reminding people of the importance of this, and just trying to find various arguments for it, various ways that will connect with different types of people. Somebody who is much younger in your organization doesn't have the same life experience and perspective that somebody who has been around for a couple decades might have. And so the argument, or the persuasive argument you're trying to convey to them has got to be different than the person who's been around and seen that. So it's really just constantly staying in touch with the message and looking for how other people are describing that message, so that you can also try to apply that with your own group.
Yeah, and I love the way you said that. Constantly finding different ways of expressing the same thing so that people hear it over and over. I just couldn't agree more, because I really think that and I hear it from everybody. We have to keep trumpeting that message. And the moment you stop, it starts to fade. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing kind of starts crumbling.
Right.
So,
And it's kind of like a coach. Just anybody who's had a coach in anything, whether it's sports, music, any extracurricular, right? They could probably to a T tell you, my coach used to say X all the time, right? And you just have to get used to that of, hey, I can't get frustrated that I'm having to repeat myself over and over again. That's a part of it. And you're not necessarily a coach, but in a lot of ways you are, in how you're delivering those messages and trying to get a team of people to move in a particular direction.
It's so funny you would say that, because I was harking back to when I had a television show, and we used to interview people who went from zero to hero kind of thing financially. And never forget the producer, the director, sorry, not the producer, the director, all the time saying the same thing. Soften your eyes, smile. Soften your eyes, smile. And it's taught me that now when I'm on a Zoom call or on an anything, I'm smiling all the time. And I look around and people on Zoom calls like, look like a dog with a jowly face,
Right.
kind of thing. But it's funny how that you just reminded me, oh, that's why I smile all the time, is because that coach back then kept saying it till I thought I was going to kill him. Right.
Right.
So big, huge topic these days. What's your take, especially very interested in being in financial services, on what you think is the advent, future, and possibilities of AI? How is that
Oh
going
my
to
goodness.
impact
Yeah,
all of
that's you're right. This is a huge topic these days. And I'd be lying if I could sit here and say I could predict where that's going to go. But to me, there's a lot of fear and excitement around AI. That seems to
us?
be a common refrain when people are talking about it. And to me, I try to view AI similarly to how I view a lot of things, which is the object itself is not good or bad. It's people with various motivations, but also there are many imperfections that are what turn the use of something into good or bad. So overall, I think AI brings a tremendous amount of potential to make things more efficient, to help people from their health to their wealth. Right? There's all kinds of applications, and I think almost every single field, making new discoveries, taking that next step of progress, really, in the human world. So it really seems like this is one of those monumental leaps in technology and therefore hopefully in human progress. I think a lot of those fears come around the potential pitfalls, obviously, of using AI. And like I said, I mean, to me, that's around how are people using it to either manipulate others or to hurt others, or maybe even simply just to only help themselves, right? But at the end of the day, I think, like with all new technology, it's just going to take time for the regulatory framework to come about, for that social compact to form on, what's the best use, what's the best restrictions on it, and things like that. So, as far as where it may ultimately end up, I mean, this is a huge area, and I think I'll just leave it at that, because there's a long, long list of past predictions about how the world may turn that, in hindsight, it just makes people look silly.
Hey man, George Orwell, 1984. I guess that passed a little while ago. It just we're still,
Right,
oh,
right, yeah.
40 years ago. Okay, fine.
It can always be a timing. And in our world, in the investment world, right, you can be calling for that market downturn, but if you don't get the timing of it right, then you may miss out on many years of very good financial progress. So it's definitely tough to be in the predictions game.
Yeah, how are you using, or how are your team members? Because I know one of the things that I've encountered is that anytime there's sensitive data, it becomes a lot harder to use a new tool like AI without in any way impinging on that sensitive data, whether that's HIPAA compliance with dentists and doctors, or legal stuff, or financial services, or people's data and information. How are your team members adapting around that limitation, or are they, to use AI to help them in their daily business?
Yeah, that's a great point. And being in the financial services industry, we are a highly regulated industry, and whenever you're in a highly regulated area, new things, new concepts, new changes tend to be squinted at when they first come about. And this is definitely one of those areas. And regulators want to make sure that people are actually using the technology according to how they say they are using it, and not just using it as a marketing tool, to come out and say, hey, we've got all this AI, we've got, technology at our fingertips, come work with us. Right. So for us, we've been taking a measured approach. We look for, we're a overall relatively small company. So, and we're in a field where there are some behemoths. So, for now, it's focused on mainly how can we protect our user data, but also find ways to incorporate this new technology, whether it's through other partners, other vendors, et cetera, who are able to provide a solution that we can apply with our clientele.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm finding a lot of what I'm seeing where there is sensitive data, so banking, investing, medical, et cetera. A lot of companies are basically saying, okay, inside our ecosystem, no AI. Right over here, this is the way you can use AI to help you create social media, or you can help you write emails or do some marketing things. But inside our machine, only this is allowed or it's not allowed because we can't compromise our data.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of
I
sense.
think that pretty well sums up kind of how we've been looking at it and the uses that we have so far. And I know that will continue to grow as the technology further matures and develops and more applications come out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely, it is kind of that next area. So it's something that we're always trying to stay attuned to and, find ways to incorporate it as we can.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. All right, here's my favorite question. Let's assume that we had a magic button, bing, and we could teleport backwards 20 years, and you could have a conversation with the younger Eric of 20 years ago. What would you want to share with him? What guidance or thoughts or philosophies would you offer? And the one answer that is not okay is, oh man, everything's worked out the way it was supposed to. No, no, no. That's what would you want if you had that ability to go back, grab a drink or a cup of coffee or whatever with younger Eric? What would you want to say to him?
Sure. Yeah, that's it's a difficult question for me because I am intrigued by space and time travel in general and all the paradoxes that come with it, right? So I'd be afraid of telling myself something that would change my actions or habits for the wrong direction. But joking aside, I think the best thing I could have told myself is just trust in your gut and don't worry so much. Things do have a way of working out, but you'll deal with what comes as you cross those bridges, right? You'll come across a situation and you'll problem solve it and you will find a way through it. You can sit there and worry about the what ifs all day long. To some degree, you have to think ahead and you have to try to consider those different situations you may come across. But no situation is going to be an end of the world situation for you. It might be the end of a particular road. It might be the end of a particular chapter in your life. But there will be something that follows that. And if you're doing the right thing, if you're treating people the right way, then you're going to be able to live with whatever that looks like. And if you spend all your time worrying about what that is, then you're not going to get to live along the way. And I think, you hear so many people and, mentors that I've had, people that I've looked up to, they get to the end of a long, very successful career. And one of the more common regrets that I hear of is not spending more time in the moment, whether it's with your family or, some recreational activities that you enjoy, to just enjoy some life along the way. Right. So, we're not going to accomplish every dream or every goal, we may have come up with, but we can't kill ourselves in worrying about it either. So, and I'll throw one more quote at you. This is a James Clear quote, and it's the ultimate form of preparation is not planning for a specific scenario, but having a mindset that can handle uncertainty. And that hits home with me because you can sit there and plan for every contingency that you might be able to come across, and life will throw you that curveball. And you will not have thought about the contingency that you encountered. But if you have that mindset where you can handle the uncertainty, then whatever does come your way, you're prepared to handle that without overstressing yourself and the situation.
Yeah, for sure, man. So if you could recommend 3 books, or it could be a different resource, but things that made an impact on you that you feel can help the budding entrepreneur, whether they're budding in terms of how long they've been an entrepreneur or just getting started or whatever, what 3 would you recommend?
Sure, sure. Well, I think to me, and I'm going to go a little bit maybe of a non-traditional route in answering this, but um, I think that reading is great. I'm a huge proponent of reading. And I'm in no way trying to downplay its importance, but I think that at times people can get caught up on reading more and more books, and I think at some point they have to say, "All right, I've got to get out of the books and I've got to get into the real world." And those books can help inform you about the real world, but at the end of the day, you've got to get the experience. You got to go out and you got to build your connections. And you got to build some street sense, some street sense, common sense, if you will. So, as far as the books and resources that I would point to, the first one, I'm going to go the resource route and say, it's your personal guiding principles. That can come from your faith. It could come from parent, family values, etc., your upbringing. But at the end of the day, you have to have a strong foundation of values that will guide you through this chaotic world. There is a whole bunch of distractions. There's an endless amount of people trying to get you to make decisions that are not really decisions about what's in your best interest. And so if you don't have that guidepost, then you can be led astray so easily and so quickly. So, to me, keeping those values, those principles that you hold, keeping those front and center for yourself is huge. Just to remind yourself of what you believe is right and how to make the right decisions. The second one is I'm going to point to the resource of people. You have to have good people in your corner, both personally and professionally. So seeking to surround yourself with good people that you can rely on. There's also the saying that I'm sure everybody's heard of, it's not what you know, but who you know. And a lot of times that's meant derogatorily. But I think that, there's a lot of truth in that. My wife is actually better at this than I am. It always amazes me the things that she can reach out to a contact and ask, and they will do it. No questions asked. They are willing to help. Right. And that comes from focusing on good relationships, building those good relationships and maintaining them. And, the right people can make your life so much easier, especially in business. And, as I mentioned earlier, just about being as efficient as possible, why go learn to do something when you may know the person who's already invested time and energy in learning it, and they like you enough to share it with you, or like you enough to come work for you to help further those results. Right. So that's the second one. And then the third one, I will give you a book. And it's, it's probably one I know you've heard of and probably many of your listeners, but Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The reason that one really stands out for me is my interpretation of it is about setting your mind to something and going out and accomplishing it. And in doing so, saturate your mind with whatever that is. If you really, really want it to happen, if you fill your mind with that topic at all times, your mind will go into hyperdrive on that, even subconsciously, and help you to find ways of getting it done.
Love that. Love that. All right, man. Well, thank you so very much for your time. As we're wrapping up today, last thoughts to all those people that are out there trying to make their dreams come true, get on the entrepreneurial train, make their own success, their own way in this world. What would you want to share with them?
Yeah, I think it's just not trying to be all things to all people. You've got to know who you are and also surround yourself with good people. And there's going to be a whole lot of hard work in between. But you've just got to be able to stay consistent, know that you're going to have curveballs, know that you're going to have setbacks, know that you're not perfect, and that you're going to just keep getting up each day and going back out there. And, you got to win the marathon, not the race.
Yes, sir. Eric Burnette, thank you very much for your time and insight, wisdom. Deeply appreciate that on behalf of all of my tribe. Again, great to have you as a friend and a mentor, and appreciate everything you share with all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. You as well, Ridgely. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely.